you already have everything you need to build something far bigger than yourself. And that's a great quote from marketing guru Seth Godin. And there's a reason why big companies spend billions of dollars every year on marketing and advertising. And I'm going to teach you how to network yourself or market yourself as well so you can get the job of your dreams, because your network is your net worth. Okay, and relationships are more important than product knowledge. And a lot of people don't realize how easy it is to sell yourself leveraging LinkedIn. As many of you know, I don't like to teach based on theory. I love to teach based on real life practical experience. With that in mind, let's go to our first sample LinkedIn profile here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you the LinkedIn profile. He's the CEO of a Sequoia-backed venture capital firm called Cohesity. And when I worked in the venture capital industry, the last board I was on before I quit to teach was this board of this company, Cohesity. I'll show you in a second. And so Sequoia led the Series A. My previous firm led the Series B. And when I did due diligence on the company and the CEO, of course, I extensively used LinkedIn to do this. Okay, LinkedIn is crucial. It's really, really important. I don't recommend networking with anybody until you have a great LinkedIn profile. Okay, so here's Mohit Aaron. So when I was doing due diligence on Cohesity to decide whether or not my previous venture capital firm should invest many years ago, the first thing I did was I went to this profile of this awesome CEO here. And in venture capital, we all know that ideas are commodities, but execution is not. And the jockey's always more important than the horse. And I never invest in any tech company, ever, when the founder or all the founders have left. Don't ever do that either, because in most cases, the company is in secular decline. And in general, when a tech company starts becoming a little bit less relevant, it's game over. And turnarounds only work in tech once per decade, like Apple last decade. Okay, so the first thing I did was I went all the way down here to look at recommendations he had written about him. And he's got 25 recommendations. And almost all these recommendations he had written before we led the Series B on the company. And you have to ask your friends or previous colleagues or previous boss to write you many recommendations over LinkedIn, especially for those of you that, like most of us, that feel uncomfortable bragging. It's not bragging if you have a customer testimonial, like a big firm you put on your website if they're a customer. And it's not bragging if somebody else writes a recommendation for you. And anytime you see somebody with more than like 10 recommendations, it's obvious they asked other people to write them for them, which is smart. So what I did was I looked through all of these recommendations, and a lot of the people that recommended him I actually knew, or some of them at least. And so we see here that he was the former co-founder of a great company called Nutanix, which went public. When I was doing my due diligence on him years ago, I saw that he created the Google file system as well back in 2003 when he worked at Google right here. He also was the chief architect of Astra Data, which got purchased. And now, of course, he's the CEO of Cohesity. Okay, now let's go and look at some of my students and how they've created their profiles. So the first one I want to look at is Dr. Dion Vernon, who's an amazing graduate from my MBA program. She graduated last year. And what I do in my MBA program, if you're a platinum member, what I do is I actually make your entire LinkedIn profile with you in real time during our many confidential one-on-one meetings. And the current MBA class, we just started yesterday for every Wednesday for 1 year. The current class is sold out. I apologize. Okay, so the first thing I look at here with Dr. Dion is this picture up here. Okay, and of course she has a great picture. She's smiling, she's upbeat, she's great. I'm smiling because I know her personally. She's wonderful. I met her here in person during my graduation ceremony last year. Also, what you see here is a picture that has 3 layers. Now, I know it might seem somewhat ridiculous for me to talk about this picture at the top, but it's important. It's important because you never get that second chance to make a great first impression. And I got that from a cheesy Head & Shoulders commercial back in the 80s. I'm dating myself there. But a lot of people leave this blank with the gray image that defaults on LinkedIn. Don't do that, please. Okay, it makes you appear stale. And so if you're not sure what kind of picture to get one with 3 layers. It's called the rule of thirds. And all great pictures have 3 layers. In this case, we've got the ocean, you've got the mountains and the sky, and this is, of course, the Amalfi Coast. Don't ever put writing on this image here, please. The reason I say that is because it doesn't work in mobile. You might not be able to read all the text. Okay. Now, the only critique I have of this LinkedIn profile, to be intellectually honest, is not enough recommendations. And of course, I was more than happy to write a recommendation for Dr. Dion. So let's go through this really quickly. And then what I can do, if you want, is I can go through your LinkedIn profile live on the air here. Okay. And if you want me to go through your LinkedIn profile live on the air during this call, then please email a link of your LinkedIn profile right now to admissions@harounventures.com, and I'll open it in a second. So the most important field you have in LinkedIn is right here, okay? So this here is your title. And this is the most searched field by HR executives as well. And so I always recommend you list multiple items here, but what you do is you put this line here so that you can have multiple text strings because this is all searchable. So if you want to get into investment banking and you're not in investment banking, but you're in school, you can write aspiring investment banker. And little side note, one of my current platinum students that started back this past January, he just got a full-time offer from Goldman Sachs to do investment banking as an associate. It's incredible. So he's in the same start class as people from Harvard Business School, etc. 2/3 of HBS is BS. Maybe you can say it about Haroun Business School too, I don't know. All right, so as we scroll down here, we see this is really easy to read. Never have more than 3 sentences in a paragraph for the rest of your life. And I used to have my own Inc. column in Inc. magazine years ago, and my editor would tell me that. Don't ever have more than 3 sentences ever in a paragraph. And if you want to put a 4th sentence, just either start a new paragraph or use a semicolon to attach 2 sentences together so you stay to the rule of 3. And so you want to, first of all, the first sentence is incredibly important, okay, the first paragraph. And the way to think about how to write these things is I want you to think about if you were asked to do a keynote speech and they asked you, do you have a bio that they can read to introduce you? Well, this is your bio. It's called the summary section in LinkedIn. And so let me read the first paragraph, then I'll move on quickly. Dr. Dion Vernon's career in education has always been at the intersection of the liberal arts and sciences. That's a great quote from Steve Jobs. In addition to working for the Olympic Committee globally, she also has extensive experience on Broadway with more than 10 productions, including The Lion King, Hamilton, Cats, and Chicago. And I asked Dr. Dion if she worked on Les Miserables, but she didn't work on Les Miserables. Okay. And then at the very end here, she created a quote, which is very inspirational. And she's a therapist. And she actually won, I think it was a gold medal with the previous Olympic team she advised. So she wrote here, something really amazing happens when we stop, confront, and own our pain and ourselves. We start to harness an incredible power called resilience. Yeah. And sometimes, and this is a quote from one of my great MBA students from Nigeria who I talked to yesterday. He told me that, from pain comes purpose. And so all of you going through career frustrations, please don't let it get to your head because there's a purpose to all that in your journey, so to speak. And as I look back on my many failures in my life, there's lots of them. In hindsight, they're not failures. They're just turning points. And so my pain had a purpose, so to speak. Okay, great. So moving on down here. When you list the items here, have only a couple bullet points each. Otherwise, it's really intimidating. If it's something you did in the past, you write here in the past tense, improved, orchestrated, that sort of thing. Of course, you list your education and make sure that you have a lot of friends. And Dr. Dion should have more of these here. Make sure you have a lot of friends to like skills of yours. And if you like others, they'll like yours, for example. Help each other out because this does matter. Again, the most important thing, though, is right here, the recommendations. Last thing I want to talk about is please don't ever follow politicians here, okay? because what will happen is half the people will like you and half the people won't like you as much. I don't know what half. We got to be really, really careful when it comes to politics. Okay, now let me show you another example here of this guy that became CEO of this wonderful company called Splunk, ticker SPLK. I participated in the IPO back in the summer 2012. Okay, and his name is Doug Merritt, and I'm not connected to him, although I have met him before. So here he is here. He's no longer the CEO of Splunk. He stepped down. But when I first found out he was going to be CEO, and I met him at a party back in 2015 or 16 or so, I went to his recommendations here to see who he knows. And it looks like he has 81 recommendations. I mean, he's great. There's a reason why he became CEO. It's because he can sell himself. And the best business people in the world and CEOs, etc., are great salespeople.